Welcome everybody to another episode of the Gents Talk podcast. Today we have a special guest all the way from Alberta. We have with us a 3-time platinum record holder, 10 gold singles. I wrote this down because there's so many accolades here, and I'm pretty sure I'm still missing some. 2 certified gold albums, 16 top 10 radio hits, a top Canadian country artist, Brett Kissel. Welcome to the Gents Talk podcast.
Thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the great introduction. I mean, I got to tell my publicist to maybe take it a little easy. I'm a guy who likes to have a couple cocktails and, I don't know, chase after my kids, and I love my wife. That's more important than any of those trophies, but really means a lot. Thank you.
How old are your kids?
I've got 4 kids, and wow. Mila, she's our oldest. She's 7. Aria is 5. So 2 daughters, now 2 sons. So Leo just turned 4, and Atlas, he's going to be 1 right away. So very, very lucky to have a very busy family. 32.
Oh, that
yeah.
kind of boy.
More? Engaged? More? No, I don't think so. I think I'm probably going to go get the old procedure done when there's something good to watch on TV, like the Masters or something like that, and then I'll sit with a bag of frozen peas on my lap.
A buddy of mine got it, and he was telling me to get it because I don't want kids.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know if I want to get it, but like, it's like, if you don't want kids, just get it. But it's super invasive too. Like, it's pretty.
Yeah, I guess it's really, really easy. My brother got snipped, and same thing. He says plan it around a good TV schedule so that you can sit and watch playoffs or something like that, and make sure, they say no heavy lifting, no nothing. So I'm gonna milk it. Absolutely, I'm gonna milk it. If they say 3 days of no heavy lifting, I'm gonna sit on the couch. I'm gonna watch hockey for 3 straight days.
If it's 3 weeks.
If it's 3 weeks, then I don't think I'm going to do it.
Okay.
If someone tells me it's three weeks of recovery, then I'm like, no, that's fine. I'll take my chances with the 5th kid instead of 3 weeks of recovery.
Do we know what the recovery time is?
No, off the top of my head, no.
No.
Well,
and I've heard some stories that actually, a vasectomy didn't go over well, but it doesn't really matter to me. I think I'm just at that point, my wife and I, Cecilia, about just entering the new phase and the new chapter. We love our children, and we feel that we're very complete right now. Now it's interesting because we weren't incomplete when we had 2 children. We weren't incomplete when we had 3. But we just feel complete now with the 4 beautiful children that we have, and entering the next phase with a little bit more freedom, a little bit more time together as husband and wife. So I believe that if we were to add another child, it would definitely change that. It would be an incredible blessing, because children always are a blessing. But we had this conversation literally last night, about what the next step is going to be. And I said, I think I'm going to make an appointment. Call my doctor up in Sherwood Park, Alberta, book the procedure. And like I said, sit with a bag of frozen peas on my lap.
So when you say the next step, I'm very curious, because you have 4 kids. Your music career just continues to grow and grow, and you're in the process. You've just released an album, and we'll get to that in a moment. You're releasing a few more, if I understand correctly.
Yeah.
What is the next phase? You keep referring to the next phase. What is that?
Well, I think I'm right at the very beginning of it. A new chapter with a new mindset. I think that's the most important thing. That is the driving force behind everything that I'm doing now, is being a lot more conscious in terms of where I will give my attention and what will be a distraction in my life, or what's really going to be a really special addition to my life. So that mindset is new. Been through a lot of great changes, been through a lot of amazing moments in my life, but I've really restructured. I've restructured financially. I've restructured every decision. My wife and I even in some ways went through, I would call it a bit of a renovation for our relationship, and a bit of a rebuild, which was necessary and very special. So I'm 32. My wife and I have been married for 11 years. We've got 4 children. That chapter is now closed. What is this next chapter? We can redefine the chapter. Sometimes, like in a book or the book of life, sometimes a chapter will literally be 20 pages. That's a lot in a 200-page book. Sometimes it'll be 2 pages because it's very quick. So I have no idea how long this chapter is going to be, but I know that this specific chapter is starting right now, and I'm in the first 20, 30 days of it.
What's the chapter called?
I think I'll probably figure out what it's going to be called at the end.
Okay.
Of what it is, but
what's the last chapter called?
Lessons learned, or redefining success.
Okay. Still
making mistakes. A very good friend of mine, Brett Wilson, that was the title of his book called Redefining Success. And I've completely done that. I'm very grateful of the accolades that you recited at the top of the show. And that meant a lot to me at the beginning. It still means a lot to me now, but there are a lot of things that matter a lot more than that now, and I'm realizing it.
What were some of those lessons that you said you learned?
Time and how to spend time. Time is a non-renewable resource, and I wasted a lot of time on things, wasted a lot of time on relationships, wasted a lot of time on just a number of aspects that just didn't matter. Looking back now, it's lessons learned. I'm grateful I learned those lessons. Maybe I'm grateful I learned those lessons in my 20s. But I want to be very, very conscious with my time and who I choose to spend it with and how I choose to spend it and the choices I'm making. So time is very important. There's a lot of people that I think we've all met in our circles that will say that when they're in their 50s. They'll say that when they're in their 70s and they realize, they've got a lot more days behind them than they do ahead of them. So I'm really taking a deep look into time today, right here, right now.
The concept of time, a lot of that seems to stem from a place of self-awareness. Is that a conscious decision to become more self-aware, or did something happen to spawn this level of thinking?
Well, that's a great question. I think anyone who would answer that, they would say both, that something usually happens to spur on that journey of self-awareness, but also sometimes you just decide that that's just what you're going to do. And you can wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to focus more on this. But I had an incredible record deal that I ended up getting out of last year with Warner Music. What an extraordinary relationship. They gave me the best decade that I could have ever asked for in terms of music, but I also knew it was important to be independent and to release more music, have a lot more creative control, and say the things that I really wanted to say because I was in control. I was the president and the CEO now. So that was an important thing that I learned. My wife and I will probably talk about it perhaps in our own podcast in the future. But when I say about a renovation of a relationship, we looked at each other and said, is this serving us? Is this relationship really what we want? And it was okay if the answer was no, which would have led to a separation. But my answer was an absolute yes. And if it's an absolute yes, then what needs to change? I was on the road 200 days a year. I was always gone. I'm building a life and trying to make as much money as I can, but why? If you don't have a family, what for? So that was a lot of hard truths that were discovered. So self-awareness was important, but actually stems from something even more important than that, and that's self-love and love and self-care. And girls are so good talking about that stuff. There's self-love and self-love advocacy everywhere you look, on commercials and Instagram and in conversations. And guys really don't talk about that. We are now talking a lot more about mental health. We're talking about, checkups for prostate exams and all that kind of stuff. But we don't talk about self-love. Like what joy do we really have in our own lives? So I'm a big advocate for that now. But again, I'm not an expert. I don't know if anybody really is. I'm just talking about my own story. And I'm only really 30 days into like a huge shift that happened right around Christmas that this is me now.
Just as raw, authentic happening on the spot.
You guys are at the very, I never even talk about this. Why would I talk about it publicly? No one's ever asked me. I'm here to promote a record in Toronto. I'm here to tell everybody how excited I am about my music career. Yet I felt this was a safe space to open up. Somebody could be watching this. Somebody could be listening to this right now saying, I'm ready to make that change. And if you are, well, I'm on the journey with you.
Well, thank you for
appreciate that.
for having the courage to share that. It's not,
thanks guys.
You have every reason to come in and say, I'm only here to talk business. I'm only here to talk about my album. I'm here to promote myself, and I'm done. I'm walking away. This is very much not a self-serving piece. This is how can I contribute my voice to the conversation around improving self-love and support for men becoming better men.
Yeah.
And I imagine a lot of that too is, I don't know what your relationship with your father may have been like, but I imagine you look at this scenario and then you go, you want to create a place, a safe space for your sons to grow up as men and feel comfortable having those conversations as well.
Yeah, I mean, I love my dad and I love my sons so much. My dad, you know, he grew up in an era and he's extremely quiet. He's very passive by nature. He's an introvert and I'm an extrovert. So I'm very opposite of what he is. And so a lot of lessons are learned by saying what I'm not going to do. Now, some of them, and I would say this over, you know, playing cards and a drink with my dad, like some of it was like, I didn't want to be what you were. And that's okay. But some of it was like, I learned some great lessons from him too, and realized that some of the very important lessons that he taught me, he didn't even have to say. I was just watching him navigate certain situations. But now, being a father myself with 2 boys, also two girls, I think a lot about the legacy that I'm going to leave for them and the lessons that I'm going to teach them in terms of words of wisdom and knowledge to bestow upon them. But also, they're watching me every day. What are they watching? What am I doing? How am I treating my wife? How am I treating them? How am I treating everyone around me? Because they're watching and they're picking up a lot of things. I mean, shit, like my kids already have isms and they're saying the same things that I'm saying in very similar ways. It's some of it is cute and some of it like it like I got to take a couple steps back. Like, oh my God, okay, they're literally becoming just like me. I better be careful here.
How is it that world, like to have 4 children and be 32 and be married at 11 years is when you see 4 kids married for 10 years, you're thinking someone is 45, 50.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate with the pressures of that being so young?
I feel like I was truly given a gift from the universe, or if you're spiritual, like God gave me a gift. Like I just have to say that I fell in love so young, and I knew so early that this was a once in a lifetime love and relationship with my wife, Cecilia. So because of that, we grew up together. We had so much fun, and we just decided that we're everything that you think that you would do when you're single. I'm not talking about like relationships and other partners. I'm just talking about those guys trips or those girl trips or those trips to Coachella. Like, oh, well, I can't do it because I'm tied down. We never wanted to tie each other down. We traveled the world together, and we did that as a couple. And then we decided now we're going to have children. So yeah, we were ahead by today's standards. Standards is not the right word, but I don't have a good vocabulary. But we were ahead of the curve in terms of doing these things so young. I know there was a lot of pressure on us because we were young, but I loved it. I wanted to be a young parent. I really did. I wanted, you know, I was 25 when Mila was born. So you think about, okay, 10 years, she'll be 10 years old, I'll be 35. 8 years later, she'll be graduating, I'll be 43 years old. And yet we're going to a lot of weddings of friends of ours in Toronto or New York or Nashville who are 45 and getting married because now they're established, and there's no judgment. That's their journey. That's great. But my journey was to be married at 21. And I love it. I wouldn't have traded a minute for anything. Honestly, I wouldn't have.
It's beautiful.
What are some of the things you're learning as a father after the 4th child? Maybe that you maybe didn't know with child number 1.
You know, that's a great question. My wife is a superior parent. She is such an extraordinary mom and parent, and I watch her all the time to really get. I take her lead for sure, but I've learned, I think, really to take it easy. Number one is not that I was a helicopter parent when our first child was born, but it was so new. I didn't want to mess this up. It had to be a routine. We had to do this. We had to do that. And it's like, no. Every kid is different. And our next daughter, Aria, was so different. So why try to fit this routine and say, well, you have to eat at this time. You have to do this. You can't do this. No, you can do anything. How we raise a child in Canada in 2023 with a child who's not quite 1 yet is so vastly different from a child being raised maybe in a third world country or friends and family that live in other areas of the world. So why there's no rules anymore. Just raise good humans. So just take it easy. Take the pressure off of yourself as a dad. Take the pressure off of yourself. the sun will come up tomorrow. Your baby's okay. Take it easy. That's something that I've learned now, a bunch of years into it.
What does helicopter parent mean?
Oh, like around everything. Like you can't let the kid fall. Oh my gosh, the kid's got a handful of dirt in their mouth. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. The kid fell off, 2 rungs of the ladder at the playground. Now, honestly, I look and I watch and I see, okay, what's going to happen here? Because if I am hovering around like a helicopter, I'm going to be like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And the kids will feel my energy. Whereas now it's like, okay, the kid's got a handful of dirt in their mouth on our farm. I'm going to go take it out of their mouth, but it's okay. There's maybe some good germs in there. That's going to be good for this kid. Or my kid fell off the slide. Boom. And I'm like, oh, baby, this is like, there are going to be some tears. But like, no, my son dusted himself off. I'm like, I'm surprised this kid doesn't have a broken arm. He dusted himself off and he's out playing with his buddies again and his cousins. I'm like, okay, I bet you I could have made this into a really big scenario and a big situation. And I'm like, he's a resilient kid. He's okay. So,
and I think we forget how resilient kids really are.
Well, look at us.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how old you guys
I'm 35.
are. 35, 32. Like, okay, you guys, we were raised in the early 90s and 80s and 90s where there are probably elements of our family. And my dad was probably had a Pilsner in his left hand and a dart in his right hand, just watching me and my brother fight it out. And that was actually a good thing, So it's okay.
Worked out, yeah. You go to the playground, you don't come home until after the sun starts to fall, and there was no cell phones, and you had to learn to make your way. You had to
was a
talk
good time.
to kids. Yeah. I think in some ways we may have that helicopter parenting. I love that term. I feel like that's become more of a thing these days, and kids are not as resilient as they could be because of that.
Yeah, there's definitely a softness today, and I see it around. It's not a judgment. It's just my own personal observation. And that in some ways is okay because we're raising very conscious children in this generation, more conscious than ever in terms of so many different friendships that we can have. And I love that. But at the same time, every kid is on their screens. I can go to, Joey's or a Boston Pizza or something like that. And every kid's got an iPad. Where's the conversation? Where's the real face-to-face interaction? Case in point, a kid falls off the monkey bars and the parents got to whisk him away and take care of him and throw 14 Band-Aids on him. Whereas, you got skinned up knees. You're going to heal. I had skinned up knees. I'm going to heal. Yeah. I'm just fine. Yeah.
So
there's a good balance between it all.
Let me ask you a question then. You make a really good point about the kids being at the restaurants and all these places with iPads and screens and the parents sort of being helicopter. You also said a little earlier you were on the road 200 days a year, so you weren't physically present all the time. How did you balance the two?
For our 2 daughters, they were with me everywhere.
You took them on
that I went.
tour
So I
with you.
did take them on tour with me. But now, after COVID, as I started going out and traveling, I spent 2 years off. I tried to cram 2 years off into 1 year. So it was a wild year where I was gone. Really in 2021 and 2022, gone like crazy. So my wife did an incredible job holding down the fort. And it may sound, a little hypocritical to say, okay, like I'm actually on FaceTime connecting with my kids. But I realized, even though I had obligations for the last 6 months, I realized, okay, I made these plans 6 months ago. I have to fulfill them, but I'm not going to do that moving forward. Because in the life of an artist, you do that a lot. I just have to say that I just wanted to be as present as I possibly could with our kids. That's why my wife and I were very, very lucky to bring our kids out on the road for the most part in the early days, like 2016, 17, 18, and 19. Kids have been every province, every territory. It's been really special.
And this relationship with your wife, Cecilia?
Yeah.
It sounds like a very special one because it seems like you're very comfortable having these conversations from your lens, from your perspective. And a lot of men tend to struggle in having these conversations where it almost implies a level of vulnerability.
Yes.
I'm going to need this from you in order for me to do this, or I need your support here. Was that something that you've always been able to do, or did you learn that along the way?
We learned it. We have a really, really incredible life coach. Her name is Lynette, and she is a no bullshit, incredible, tell it like it is. And if she's going to do couples, she will work with husband, wife, and then together. Husband, wife, together. So therapy has been great for us. We've actually done therapy from the very beginning. I've always thought, and my wife, she coined this phrase and was able to articulate the thought that I've had, is that if I can take guitar lessons, or if I can listen to a podcast for business improvement, why can't we do this for our relationship? And we had so much strife and outside influence, and like it was just a rocky first few years that we navigated through. A lot of fun, but still very rocky. So with that being said, I think therapy was very important, and you have to learn to be vulnerable where nothing is off the table. Like you have to be able to talk about absolutely everything. And when I mean everything, I mean everything. If there's nothing my wife could say that, that we wouldn't be able to talk it through and navigate, even if the choice was a separation, it would break my heart. But you have to be able to talk about things that could lead to that, which would be worst case scenario, or talk about, I'm different today in 2023 than I was in 2013, or than I was when we first met in 2008. I'm vastly different. So it's okay to change. And now my joy comes from here. So these are the things I want now in life and relationship. And there's no demand here, like you need to give that to me, but these are my desires now. Are you okay with this? And it could be time. It could be taking up new habits. It could be I'm going to have a career change. I don't know what it's going to be different for everybody, but Cecilia she's a guru. Like, it's unbelievable how.
So this is a constant conversation that
every day.
Yeah.
Every day. Tonight, we're going to have a conversation, and something's going to come up that we can do to improve while I'm here doing promo in Toronto, or there's going to be something that we're going to talk about that's going to bring us incredible joy, and we're going to plan a trip, or we're going to plan something with our family. So we talk all the time, and it's very, very important. She's my best friend, and I really want to be hers.
Are you able to have that same openness and conversation with like a couple of boys? Is it only just because I know some people, like, you can be very open with your lady, but then when you're around like the buddies, it's still like that. Like you said, you're a cowboy. That's on the upper echelon of, like, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, I've got a couple of really, really good guy friends that I definitely could open up and I think talk to them about anything. I would pick and choose. I've decided to pick and choose those moments to get down like super, super deep. I feel like I'm a bit more of a confidant because I have this great outlet, which is my wife. I can talk to her, and therefore I don't have to. And sometimes it is to vent to the boys. But sometimes it's to, let some steam go a little bit too. I have those relationships, but that is another big thing in this new era of my life, is to open up more and I think honor those friendships, because it's not that I kept things surface, but I would only go down so deep because I wouldn't want to burden some of my buddies with some of the shit that I had going on. Feel like it's a burden.
Correct. Feel like it's a burden.
Yeah.
But why did you feel like it was a burden?
I was just judging myself, thinking that I'm going through a rocky time in my relationship, or I'm thinking about leaving my record deal, which could cause some major financial issues, and I know you're going through your own stuff and we barely get a chance to see each other, so let's keep it light and just go watch hockey. You know what? Whereas, why did I actually put emphasis on keeping it light and going to watch hockey? Well, what we really could have done was go to a spot, a quiet back corner booth in a restaurant, and really talk.
The same amount of time.
In the same amount of time, those 3 hours, what could have we accomplished? So I just want to be more conscious. Now, the proof will be in the pudding. If we have this conversation together a year from now and you roll back the tape and say, did you do what you said you were going to do? I don't know.
Well,
but,
it sounds like we're going to have
goal.
to
Planning on it is obviously leading the right direction, right? So,
yeah,
because some people are completely against even the thought of it, right?
And that's okay, because that's your journey.
Yeah.
If you have made your own personal decision at this particular time that you are going to, I don't do that. I don't talk about this, whatever. There's ways to let it out. Some would say that may not be a very healthy choice, like internally, but I'm also not going to judge it. If that's your journey, like my dad, I try so hard to get my dad to open up and tell me things. My mom and my dad went through a divorce last year. Like, that was interesting. 40 years of marriage, now they're divorcing. So I try to get my dad to talk about it and just never would. So it's like, actually, why am I pushing him to? It's okay, in your own time. And it might not be now. It might be in the next lifetime. I don't know. It's okay.
Do you think, if I may ask, do you think that you're able to, and I don't know how well or not well you handled that situation, but your parents getting a divorce after 40 years of marriage, you being where you're at and having the sense of self-awareness, is there a lesson that you could take away from that situation?
You know what? Yeah, I mean, for sure. And I want to be very careful to not judge their situation, because I was never in their shoes. Of course, I had a front row seat to most of it. But I think the reality is that I don't know if my mom or my dad ever prioritized joy. Fair. Like the things that my dad really wanted to do, I never saw him do it. The things my mom really wanted to do, I never really saw her do it. And so if being together was the reason why you weren't going out seeking the joy and the true passions that you had in life, whatever they may be, then I think to myself, okay, then should this divorce have maybe happened sooner, come what may? But I know my parents said, like, we want to wait until you guys are established. We want to wait until you guys were graduated high school. We wanted to wait. I'm like, okay, how do you feel about that decision now, Dad? You know, you're 65 years old. How do you feel about doing that today, right now? Do you think it would have been better if you did that 20 years ago when you were 45? Yeah, I would have been 12 years old, but you can't turn back the clock. So I don't know what lessons would I have learned. I just now really prioritize true joy and the things that bring me so much happiness.
And on the topic of relationships, you talked about how, you know, you're almost being selective with your circle, right? Yeah. Who you let in, who you really build those deep connections with. I imagine there would have been scenarios where you've had to let people outside that circle or let them go, essentially.
Yeah.
What was that process like? Because I imagine there's long-term relationships that really and truly were there because of longevity, not because of deep connections.
Yeah, and I mean, were these relationships serving me? Were they serving us as a family? Were they relationships that were really taking advantage of me? I mean, I live a very public life with really 1 million friends, but only 4 or 5 really close, do or die buddies. So with that being said, I have had to have some very difficult conversations, or when someone is, and I would procrastinate, and I hated confrontation. But if somebody would call me out and say, why not? Why aren't we like this anymore? I just had to kind of saddle up and explain why, and come what may. And that can either lead to, not that I needed an apology or whatever, but it could lead to, oh, I didn't know that I was doing that in this relationship. Let's improve it. Or it's like, yeah, man, if that's what you want, I'm out. It's hard, and there've been many circumstances, even recently. So it's not easy. It's even kind of tough to talk about, because sometimes it can get awkward, and maybe somebody could be listening in right now. But at the same time, you know what? I'm on a different path, and people change, relationships change, and it's okay. It is.
Is there something that you can? Why is that so? Let me rephrase. Why is that so important to do that? I know when you say, or when someone says, I'm going to cut this person out of my life, or reduce the amount of time I spend with this person because they don't serve my needs or my purpose, it sounds very selfish, but it's very important to do anyway. Why is that such a struggle for people to do? But also, why was that so important for you to do that?
Well, longevity really does play a big factor, like you had said just a moment ago. So based on that, you can be very comfortable. But who are you surrounding yourself with in terms of to really even improve your life? And there's Instagram memes and stuff like that anybody will see about, like, if you surround yourself with this is a very distant example, but if you surround yourself with successful people, you yourself, by osmosis, really have an opportunity to become successful too. So are you with people that are energy leaks? Are you with people that were good buddies at this era in your life, but now really they suck so much out of you when you spend that time together? So yes, it may sound selfish. Like if you're just hearing this right now at this particular point in the conversation saying, oh, Brett Kissel's a bit of a dick. Like if you don't serve him, he cuts you out. Like where is the history and everything? But no, it's about evaluating the relationships and understanding that over time, if you transition out of it or you've gone on two separate paths and you've actually given it a good, honest try, that some people in your life, friends, family, can be energy leaks. And if you live your life through a lens of there's no real special relationships here, then it's actually okay. And you can circle back around at a different time back to that friendship. And they may be feeling the exact same way that you do, but you've been buddies for 20 years, so let's keep this going. But does it really work? You know?
Like, the longevity piece is really hard.
Yeah.
Because you almost feel an obligation to keep that relationship going. And if you're the one that ends it, you're the bad guy.
Yeah, and it's tough, but the human spirit, human psychology, managing relationships is a very difficult thing to do. And all three of us, like, we are going to do this all our lives. We're going to do this all our lives, and then when we pass away, we still won't even scratch the surface of mastering energy and emotion. Like we never will. So we just have to do our best you know?
I'm curious, are there specific books that you read or podcasts that you listen to? Because a lot of the ways you talk is very sort of wise beyond your years, thinking into the future, being self-aware, being present, being mindful. I'm very curious.
I haven't read
love it. Don't get me wrong.
No,
it's fantastic.
I haven't read a book for...
I thought that was the end of this sentence.
No,
I haven't read a book.
That's my
boy.
I haven't read a book.
Let's go.
No, really. Like I haven't read a book since high school until this year. I was in Mexico and I read a book that my wife recommended by Louise Hay, and it's called How to Heal Your Life, and it's the metaphysical affirmations that you can say to heal physical issues and mental issues or mental trauma. And so there is an affirmation for everything from migraine headaches to cancer to back pain to gout to eye problems to whatever. And Louise Hayes as a guru has done an incredible job linking them all. She's since passed away, but I mean, this book has sold like 50 million copies and it's a very easy read. And I read it and it like completely changed my life. Now I think I was well on this journey, understanding that it's a never-ending journey, but that's the only book that is in the category that I like that I've ever read. I've read Johnny Cash's biography, which I think is really cool, but just stories about smoking darts and hanging out with Bob Dylan and you know, and hanging out with presidents. Okay, that's a really cool read.
Yeah.
Jordan Tutu, a hockey player, you know, NHL All-Star. I read his book with his battle with addiction and his challenges with his family, living up in, you know, in Rankin Inlet up in Nunavut, like a very unique story. And I'll take tidbits of information of the trauma of, you know, losing his brother and those stories. But is that a self-help book? No, that's an autobiography, really is what it is. I learn a lot from that. But no, to answer your question now in a long-winded answer, and I'm sorry for that. No, I don't read.
Have you ever met Jordan?
I met Jordan when he played for the Predators, but we sat beside each other on a plane.
Oh, really? Okay.
Coming back from Nashville.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and had a great conversation. And he gave me his book. He was on the press tour, and you know, My Life on Ice. And I'm like, wow, what a great title. I just loved his book. I've never read a book faster in my life. Nice. Then I read that probably 3 days. It was done. I loved it.
He's got an incredible story.
It's a remarkable story. Yeah, a lot of respect for him.
Hockey in general, though, is a very particular sport. It means so much in Canada.
Yeah.
There's a lot of negativity around it, especially in the locker rooms, especially when it comes to, you know, a sense of toxic masculinity. We had Tommy Smythe here, and he's the great grandson of Conn Smythe.
Conn Smythe, yeah.
And he was talking about hockey culture and how difficult it is for a lot of men in the sport. And we've seen some of the stuff that's happened with Hockey Canada and whatnot. Do you think, and you mentioned you watch hockey, I watch hockey.
Yeah, love the sport.
Exactly. Like there's an affinity, there's an affection for the sport and what it does in Canada. How it brings families together, all the glorious moments on the world stage and all that. But there's still a component of, a very toxic masculinity, a toxic masculine approach to sports in general. Do you see that through your own self-awareness, through your own lens? Do you see a lot of that happening still in the sport? And not to say that you're an expert for hockey in any sense, but just rather from an outsider's lens.
What I will say is, and I know that there, you could be watching this conversation right now. So there's good and there's evil. There's positive and negative. There's a blessing and a curse in absolutely everything, every decision, every sport, every interaction. And so hockey has done so many incredible things for our country in terms of unity, in terms of togetherness, in terms of identity. Like it is very, very special. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that are being uncovered today, of things that have happened in previous generations, or things that things that really could be happening today, right now. When there's something that is toxic in a relationship, in a sport that is going on, it's very important to get rid of that as quickly as possible and immediately, no questions asked. If there's a toxic relationship, anything that has toxic is connecting to toxicity, like you have to get rid of it. It's like a cancer. You have to cut it off. Like you have to. So I believe that now that so much is being uncovered, it is an opportunity today. Now that it's being revealed, and now that we know, okay, hockey in general, I can't say we because I'm not part of hockey culture. I love the sport, but hockey needs to do better. Change it. Effective immediately. Right here, right now. I believe from what I've heard and conversations I've had with different organizations is that they are doing that actively. So that is just something that I know does take time because there's hurt and there's trauma that is associated with it. But when you say there's a lot of toxic masculinity attached to hockey, I believe that there's toxic masculinity if you choose to look in so many different areas. Could be in music, it could be in rodeo culture, it could be in baseball and football and swimming, anything. So when it's revealed and you see it, you have to get rid of it. There's no room for that. There's also no room for toxic behavior on the opposite side when the pendulum goes this way. We can very well live in the middle where there's room for all sides, there's equality, there's unity, and if you have that lens, then hockey can be a much better sport than it is today. I still think it's an incredible sport, but it can be better. Country music can be better if you get rid of the toxic sides to the music business. So
what does that look like on the music side? Like you've been, how long now have you been in
I would
professionally?
20 years. Okay. Like since I was a little kid, like I was singing professionally, like as in getting paid, right? Like, I was like
16.
Yeah, like 16 for sure. Like I got my record deal when I was just after 20. I was nominated for a Canadian Country Award when I was 16. But
wow. That's incredible.
It's been amazing.
Like, how's it being on that stage at that age?
Unbelievable. Yeah. So much fun. A lot of fun stories.
How'd you stay, I guess, stable from being so young? Usually there's a lot of instability when you see somebody that's has that much success at that young age. Now to be 32 and have, like I keep saying it because I'm very impressed by the four kids and they're married. Like how does
it's I know where you're getting at. Like if you met my my grandparents, or my parents, I think that they would tell you that like I don't think there was any way that they were going to let their kid or their grandson become a story like you see in a tabloid, in at the grocery store, or some Hollywood story. Like not on their watch. Like sometimes they would even go a little bit further to make sure that they would never let my head get too big. And because we were also farm and ranch people, like you're very, very humble growing up in that type of setting. You help your neighbor, you help each other. And my grandpa is a famous story within our family where I played the Big Valley Jamboree, which is like Boots and Hearts, but in Alberta. And it's huge. I got to open for Brooks and Dunn. Like we played in front of 35,000 people. I got paid more money than I ever got paid in my life. And I had the best night ever playing in front of a sold out crowd of 35,000. Like this is what dreams are made of. We took the bus back to the farm. I slept in my childhood bed. And we got there, 3 a.m. My grandpa knocks on the door, it's time to wake up, go do chores. And I said, Grandpa, I just hey, I just played Big Valley. Like, no way. Like I'm hungover. The band and the crew, they all stayed overnight and we were going to have a big party the next day at our ranch. Said, yeah, Grandpa, it's no, please. Like I've had like 2 hours of sleep. Wake your ass up. You ain't no country star on the farm. And he just opens the door and hands me a pair of coveralls and rubber boots. Like he was upset. Like he was offended that I'm not going to go out and chase cattle with him. But I'm like, what a great reminder. You're right. Wake your ass up. You ain't no country star on the farm. So how did I handle all of this stuff? I would go and I would play on the weekends. And then I would come back and I would chase cows with my dad and go fencing. And he really, my family worked me very hard, and I'm grateful for that. That work ethic was extremely important, and I never complained. I actually felt I knew what they were doing, and I'm still grateful for those memories, being very tired, very exhausted, but I had a lot of time to think driving a tractor about next weekend, what am I going to do better? Next weekend or in a month from now, I get to play this big show opening for one of my heroes. How is that set list going to go? And then I'd realize, oh no shit, I missed my turn. I'm driving in the big grain truck and now I got to drive 2 miles and make a big turn. Like a lot of fun memories.
How do you stay motivated all these years? Like particularly from the lens of, I mentioned all of the accolades and I mentioned also that there's a lot more. Oftentimes, and you see this particularly with professional athletes, they have their career years and then there's a drop off. Right, mm-hmm. Like they've achieved the pinnacle of their careers, and then the fire is just not as strong. Yeah. How did you stay motivated to keep going, and then decide, you know what, I'm going to walk away from a record deal and start my own thing? Like that all takes, a sense of motivation, urgency.
As I get older, I know the fire that I have for my career won't be as strong as it is today. And that's okay. That's a very natural process. And instead, I'm going to allocate some of this really good wood and I'm going to put it over here to another side. Maybe upcoming businesses like, Shaquille O'Neal and Michael Jordan and stuff like that have actually now made more money outside of basketball than they did while they were playing the sport. So for me, motivation comes from a bunch of different areas. There have been many periods in the last couple of years that have been very dark where it's been very difficult to be motivated because what's next? I mean, in an American career, an international career, what more can I do in Canada? But it's truly about like gratitude really fuels my fire now. I am so grateful for the opportunities that I've had, that I still have right now, and the things that I've yet to accomplish that are still on my list of goals that I know I will accomplish, and I'm very excited. And now my fire is fueling those decisions to go and cross those things off of my own bucket list. So I'm really, really excited about what the next 10 years have. I appreciate that you keep saying like you're 32, and I'm like, sometimes I actually feel like old, like I'm in my 30s, and there's a lot of artists that are 16, 17 that are blowing up on TikTok and actually have bigger careers than I've got. I've been in this for 20 years. Like, what the hell, man? Yeah. But that's their journey. My journey is this: enjoy the ride, enjoy the process. And I know I've got a lot of gas left in the tank. Yeah. So it's a new chapter and it's very exciting. Personally, like we talked at the beginning of this conversation, but also professionally.
On the professional side, you said that there was a lot of dark moments. How did you overcome those moments? How did you overcome the days where you didn't think it was going to go well, where you thought about, is this worth continuing and pursuing? What went through your mind, and how did you pull yourself out of that to continue?
It was different every day. Everyone went through different elements of uncertainty, obviously during the pandemic, and we've talked about it a million times. But there was a creative switch for me where I, as an entertainer who really gets so much value out of stepping out on stage, if I can't perform anymore, what good am I? If you take a stage out from under my boots and a guitar from out of my shoulders, a microphone out of my hand, then what can I really contribute to this world? That's all I've ever done. So how do you pull yourself out of it? Through conversation, journaling, leaning on your friends. I got out into nature, which was really important, and I was just with my own thoughts, where I would either speak out loud or I'd really think. I love being in the outdoors. I love to hunt, I love to fish, and so while I wasn't on stage, I would go in, like I would get lost with no cell service in northern Saskatchewan or the Northwest Territories or some of these places, and I would just think, and then I would journal and I would write. Now that's what worked for me. But some days I would write, some days it would be phone a friend, some days it would be lean on your wife, some days it would be just don't worry about that, it's going to work out. You have to have the mindset that it's going to work out. Don't know when, don't know how. That's not my job. That's up to the universe. That's up to God or whatever you want to say. And for me, and then I would just have the most beautiful distraction, which is my children. So I would chase after them. And before you know it, a week goes by and I'm just so immersed in their lives that I realize, oh, shit, that problem that was a really big issue, a really big challenge for me last Monday, I just don't even care about it anymore. And only 7 days went by. So I really trust in the universe to point me in the right direction.
That's incredible. The Compass Project.
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued by it because I love the name. And I love the idea behind it. But maybe you can share a little bit more about it, where you're at with it. You just had an album from that series come out and what that journey is going to look like.
Well, I'm really, really proud of the Compass Project. It's really 4 albums in one package that will be released this year. And the first album, the South album, points the needle of the compass down south to Nashville. So I lived in Nashville for many years, still have a home there. And Music City, USA is, if you've never been, it's the most, I think it's one of the best cities in the world.
I've heard great things.
I love it. Guys, you know what? Bring the microphones. That way you can write off it as a business trip. I'm learning what CRA will allow me to do and what they won't allow me to do.
I'll write that one down.
Guys, come. I would love to host you in Nashville. That is not an empty promise. That is, I would love to show you why Music City is one of the greatest cities on planet Earth. We would have so much fun. The music is incredible. The studios are incredible. The songwriting culture is amazing. So the South album is me saying thank you to Nashville and putting together a really special grouping of songs, 11 songs, that is, of course, hit driven and radio focused, like everybody when they're promoting a new record, a new country record. But I felt like I put in more time, more energy in the song selection and the writing process to just make it bigger and better than anything I've ever done. Plus, this is my first independent release. So shit, it's got to be better than anything I've done, for sure. The
you
stakes are higher.
You got to prove that
I really
you left for a reason. And
so the South album is that. The East album is really pairing lyric and melody in the way that the great Canadian singer-songwriters have done. Gordon Lightfoot, who lives here in Toronto. All the great singer-songwriters from the East Coast. These are love songs that if we all had a few cocktails and you guys were at my ranch and we sat around a campfire, if you were to ask me, play a song that's not commercial, but a song that you really love, these are the songs I would play you. So I'm so proud of them, but they wouldn't work on a traditional album, on a typical record. Right. So instead, I made an entire record of just that, and I called it the East album because the singer-songwriters of the East Coast, made great careers out of that mindset. The West album is exactly what I think you would think, and it's a country and Western album, like songs I wrote called Oil and Cattle. That song is for Alberta, baby. Like, I come from a land of oil and cattle, hard work, blood, sweat, and tears. I got another song that talks about our family ranch called Legacy and how our ranch, we almost lost it because of my grandpa's succession plan, and a lot of family members, my mom especially, really didn't like what that was going to be. So we almost lost the ranch. So very vulnerable, but talking about true Western and country themes. And then the North album, being in this business for 10 years on a national scale, I released, 20 songs to radio. The 10 best ones that have gone gold or platinum well, how do you do a greatest hits record? And so I decided to do it live. So songs like Airwaves or Drink About Me or Anthem or We Were That Song or Tough Times Don't Last, Tough People Do, these songs that I've written and recorded over the years, I've got live versions of them from the Calgary Stampede or from Boots and Hearts or from Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, or St. John's, Newfoundland. So it's a live version of these songs from a different city. So those 4 albums will come out this year, and it's the most ambitious project of my life. Pretty damn crazy, but I'm very excited about it.
Ambitious is a good word. I didn't realize all 4 albums were going to be released in the same year.
Yeah.
That's
Completely different. Yeah.
Are they all recorded? Or
they're all done, yeah.
Yeah, just
they're all in the bag, just ready to. And for me now that I'm independent, I feel very lucky to move a lot quicker. When I was part of the label system, I referred to that as like a ship as big as the Titanic. Like what a mighty ship that was. And we had so much muscle. Like what an incredible relationship. But now we're like this small but mighty boat that can move very quickly and navigate through these seas. Like I kind of think of it like Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx in Miami Vice that are going across the ocean, going to Cuba in that speedboat.
Yep.
That's where I'm on right now, where it may not be as big, it may not have as much muscle, but we can move very quickly. So am I releasing 4 albums this year? Yes. And the reason why is because I'm looking at what my peers are doing in the business. And when Luke Combs, who's one of the biggest artists in the world right now, or Morgan Wallen, when they're releasing an album, oh shit, I'm going to stay away from that. But as soon as they're done, that's when I'm going to release. Yeah. So I have the creative freedom to move a lot quicker.
The concept of doing this solo, not under the Titanic, which is a great analogy, by the way, because it really illustrates, when you're working with a record label versus doing it independently. Do you think today you need a record label in order to be able to have a successful music career?
It's a huge question, and there's a lot to unpack, and I would still say the value of a record label is very, very strong. Coming from a guy who is in the system, who's now out of the system, it was like playing in the NHL. Like, whereas when you get to be a certain level as an athlete, maybe related to this, other teams are gonna call. And you'll still continue to play in the NHL on your terms, in a city that you want to play in the way that you want to play the game. But when you're first making it to the NHL, you were just happy to get drafted. You were just happy to play in the show and have a team with a great coach, which would be like your record label owner or CEO, and great teammates who would really show you the ropes. Whereas now I feel in some ways I'm a veteran in the business, after being here for, a decade on the national scale, that I don't need the label system in the way that it was for me. Would I be open to, in the past, would I be open to a label deal today? Absolutely. If it's the right
so
deal.
You haven't ruled it out. It's
no,
just
not at all. This
now.
isn't me putting up my middle fingers to the label system, but this is also me very proudly saying I'm very proud to be independent today. I'm very, very proud of this next chapter, like I've said, now many times, but there are ways for an artist to be completely independent from the get-go and have an amazing career. And if that is your journey, those are your choices, good on you. That's great. You will make a lot of money and be very successful if that's your choice. Or if someone says it's do or die, I need to be signed to a record label out of New York or LA or Nashville or Toronto, no matter what, well, if that's your goal, then go chase it. And go and milk that relationship and take advantage of it to the fullest extent. I did. And taking advantage might have this negative connotation to it. Like, no. Like I took advantage.
Yeah, it's hard for you to take. It's harder for an independent to take advantage of the label.
Yeah,
it's their, so it's
and they took advantage of me.
Yes,
and that's great. That's what you're supposed to do.
The nature of the relationship.
The more money they made me, the more money they made in return.
Yeah,
in taking a percentage, it was a win-win. Anybody who ever fought the label in terms of like these biographies, I didn't really understand that. I understood the creative control, but one of the reasons why I left the label was because my team was gone. Like I got signed by this person with this vice president and this marketing manager and this other vice president and this publicist.
And they're all gone.
They're all gone. So if my team is gone, why should I stay?
Yeah.
You know? And it's very interesting, full circle. I've hired a bunch of them that now work on my independent team. So like, I've not lost a step here, and I'm very, very happy about that.
Yes. Would you say you're a free agent then? Or
I would, I'm a free agent.
Starting his own league.
But happy to be.
Yeah.
You know, it's uncharted territory for me. I've never been in this situation at this level. I've been independent, of course, before I signed my record deal, but that was locally.
Ever moments where you think you made a mistake?
Oh, I still think that. I think that twice a day. And then twice a day I think I made the best decision of my life. So that's just the ups and downs.
What affirmation do you tell yourself when you think I made a mistake?
Well, the reality is that there actually are no mistakes in life.
Okay.
There's no mistakes. If you choose to believe that, they're just lessons learned. And things that I would have thought are categorized as a mistake, which the general population will categorize it also as a mistake. But no, that was just a lesson learned. That was a challenge. And I chose this path. And looking back now, that actually caused more harm than had I chosen this path. So some would call it a mistake, but it's just truly a learning opportunity, like a lesson.
I love that. That's a really good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Lesson learned, not a mistake.
Not a mistake.
What do you got? What else you got going on? You got the Compass Project. Anything else? You're doing the tour. You're doing the rounds.
I own a vodka company and a whiskey company out in Alberta, so I'll bring that.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll put those in our mugs.
That's not what's in it.
Yeah. So the entrepreneurial side is really great. It's called Deuce Vodka, so that's our premium product. Deuce Vodka. Really, really proud of how it's made. It tastes amazing. It's just filtered so many times. Filtration. Everyone talks about how many times it's distilled. If you know the business, that's kind of a bit of a myth. Like by the time you actually put in the bottle, I bet you most vodkas on the shelf are already distilled 5, 6, 7, 8 times. So that's just marketing by Grey Goose, which was brilliant. 5 times distilled. What does it mean? It means we can charge more.
Yeah.
You know?
It was already 5 times.
Yeah.
Like Oreo, when they said it was vegan, it's like, it was already vegan. Like, it's just
Yeah, exactly. Or A&W, grass-fed beef. What else do cows eat? Like they've eaten grass all their lives for millions of years, But so the filtration is very important to how we make our vodka. So Deuce Vodka, and my business partner Matt Doucette, he started it in Saskatchewan. This kid's an entrepreneur on steroids. He's 25 years old, one of my best friends, and talk about who you surround yourself with. This guy's changed my life.
Nice.
He's just a magnet. He's a magnet for opportunity, magnet for wealth, money. Like, you want to talk about luck and horseshoes, like it's unbelievable what this guy can attract. So Deuce Vodka, as well as Backcountry Vodka. Backcountry Whiskey is an economy whiskey that we launched this year, and I'm so proud of our sales. Our general manager Yvonne Friesen is just he's just an amazing guy. He just works so hard. So our team is growing. We're selling a lot of product, and I don't know if we're going to be the next Ryan Reynolds and Aviation Jen, but a part of me says,
why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Why not? He's a Canadian success story.
Yeah.
Why can't Brett Kissel have a company that sells for $500 million?
100%. All the power to you. That entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well.
Yeah, it's very important. It's very, very important in our lives.
Amazing. Brett, thank you so much for coming, man.
Oh, thank you both.
This was incredible.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks for a great conversation, letting me talk actually so much. I think it might have talked too much. But
No such thing. Listen, if we're doing most of the talking, then there's something wrong with the episode.
Yeah.
It's about you and sharing sort of some of these conversations, talking so openly. I really loved the part about, the constant work going into your relationship with your wife. I love that part because that is such an important element that I think a lot of men forget about. They work really hard to get to the altar, but they forget what they need to do after that.
Exactly.
And that's how you sustain a long-term relationship. And hearing you so eloquently share that, I think, is such an important message. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thanks, dude. I'm honored. I feel like I'm the luckiest guy in the world to found the love of my life so early. And I love her with all my heart. And I hope that when she does listen to this conversation, she'll pat me on the back and say, good job. That's It's a great way to
You hear that,
craft
Cecilia?
the
You
message.
gotta listen to the whole episode
That's
to get
right.
to this part.
Love you, babe.
That's good. No, I really do, because I like how, I think one of the first things you mentioned was your wife, like right away.
Yeah.
And I've been around a lot of people that, whether they're married or not, they don't really have a very strong opinion towards being married. It's like, boys like older, it's like, I don't get married, or like, it's like, oh, the wife,
Yeah.
oh, the ball and chain.
Ball and
just,
chain,
it's
yeah.
always, it's usually, always, obviously not always, but it's often very in that negative, at least negative light, and for you to shine such a bright light on it is just not like that.
Why wouldn't you
I
want
appreciate
that?
it.
Yeah.
Well, it's a wonderful human experience to share that with somebody. And again, someone else's journey
It's their
in saying
journey.
that I don't think you should get married. Well, there's a lot of judgment and opinions there. And we actually try to remove the word should from our vocabulary. You should do that. Well, who says? You shouldn't get married. Don't should on me. Like, that's my choice.
Don't shit on me.
No,
Don't
don't shit on me.
Don't shit on me.
Yeah, exactly. So there's
put that on
there's
the
a
shirt.
bunch of people who literally never want to get married.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Great. You found what works for you, and that brings you so much joy. And there's some people who have really missed the companionship or need that in their lives. So find the right partner. And there's going to be a shit ton of compromise and work at it, but that's also part of the human experience. So for me and Cecilia, that's all I know. It's an amazing relationship. We're working on it every day. It goes through ups and downs, hills and valleys, and that's okay. I want to be sitting around this table celebrating my 50th wedding anniversary with this, because there's not going to be many of us in this current era of life.
100%.
So hopefully it'll be us.
I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. We're going to take the Gents Talk series to Nashville.
Yep.
We have to.
Oh, guys.
Take up on that
Coming
offer.
down.
What an episode that'll be. That could be a 4-part series.
I think so.
North,
Yeah.
south,
That'll be our own
do one in
compass
the north, one in the
subject.
south,
Yeah.
one in the east, one in the west.
I'd love it. Absolutely.
Amazing. Brett, thank you so much. Everybody, thank you for listening. If you haven't done so already, please comment, like, subscribe, do the whole works.
Follow,
Show this
all
man all the love he deserves. You're doing incredible things.
Thank you.
We'll support you as best we can all the way through. And keep it up. We're going to be rooting for you from the side here.
Well, thank you. And when I come here to Toronto next, I'll have some drinks backstage ready for you guys, so we can have a good hang.
Are you gonna do? I know you did Boots and Hearts, but it was during COVID.
Yeah, so it's called the Endless Summer Series or something like that. They brought it back in a socially distant way for what the government of Ontario would let them do. It was still a great party. Like, I don't know, we saw like 8,000 people like jammed at the front of the stage. But my goal is to play Massey Hall here in Toronto. That is it's one of the great goals.
Is that like the country goal? Is that like just your goal?
That's my personal goal.
Okay,
It's just one of the most iconic venues in North America. So, I have to play it, and I can't wait to do it.
And we'll be there.
Let's go.
I know you will be. I'll have some good vodka or whiskey for you guys backstage.
Amazing.
It,
Thank you
very much. Man.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
gentlemen.
We appreciate it.